Like and subscribe, join the Discord, now let's dive. For most, it's not every day you get the opportunity to buy a new TV. They can be pretty expensive, and there's often no point in upgrading, at least not for a number of years. I mean, after all, Scooper of Coop videos are in 4K, so who needs an 8K TV? But back in August of 2019, there were over 50 people who in the middle of the night got a new TV completely for free. And it was personally delivered to them by Sorry, misread the script. And it was personally delivered to them by a man wearing a 90s TV on his head. No joke. The video is a weird mixture of hilarious and extremely odd. First of all, these TVs are no joke heavy, so to deliver 50 of them in one night, carrying them all the way from the car to the front doorstep without being noticed while wearing one on your head, that's a serious workout. There's a spider right across from me. Sorry guys, I'm back. This was also in August in Virginia, which means it's regularly 60 and 70 degrees even at night. So in other words, TV bro is cooking in that outfit of his. Admittedly, this isn't so much of an internet mystery as it is an internet phenomenon, but I still think it's worth noting because it apparently isn't even the first year that this exact same neighborhood has had an encounter with TV man. In 2018, and from what I can tell, exactly 1 year prior to the day, a man wearing a TV had delivered 20 of these old school TVs to homeowners. My favorite quote though came from the police, who, when asked if these two TV deliveries were related, said, "That's not immediately clear." No, I would think it's pretty obvious. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who go around in jumpsuits delivering 90s TV sets while wearing one on their head in the middle of the night to the exact same neighborhood. Also, the wave this guy gives as he walks away from the house, knowing the camera is watching him, is horrifying. But with that said, the warm-up is done. Let's get weird. Several moons back, user Current over on Reddit made a post to r/internet mystery saying the following. "I think this guy's been posted about here before. Chol Jin Kim is back," and left this note taped to the front doorstep of a restaurant recently, with a screenshot of a handwritten note taped to the floor of a restaurant, and the note reads the following: "Dear God, gods, and or anyone else who can help me, e.g. members of a super intelligent alien civilization. The next time I wake up, please change my physical form to that of Finn McMillan of South New Brighton at 8 years old and keep it that way forever. I am so sick of this chubby Asian man body. Thank you, Chol Jin Kim, aka a desperate soul." Alright, a bit of a weird thing to say, but that's not the strangest part of this rabbit hole. If we go a step further and type his message into any search browser, we get quite a few interesting results. For instance, the next most recent reference we see to this is on a website named Orange Socks, where the author made a post entitled Chol Jin Kim with a picture of a child, and in the description, the exact same blurb about wanting to live in a random child's body. The only shift, however, from this blurb and the others is that the author makes the addition, parentheses, see the attached photo, alleging that the child in the image is the one who he wants to be. It's worth noting that this image has a watermark and looks like it's from the 1990s, so I'm not sure if it's just a random photo the author chose or if he has an actual obsession with this particular 8-year-old boy. So, hoping to get some answers, I reverse image searched the photo and found that outside of this Orange Socks website, it's not indexed anywhere else online. But it is mentioned multiple times on Orange Socks, including on the front page of their success stories, which actually made me really sad because these kids do need help and we've got this goofball acting a fool on this website. So I went back online to find more answers, and this only made me more confused. Jumping back another 3 years, we can find references to this message across the internet. And one of the strangest to me was on this Bitcoin forum, a bunch of users are chatting about new message signatures, and they appear to be quoting this author's message about Chol Jin Kim. There's no other context than that, not even how they found it. Reading through the rest of the messages only serves to make this mystery even stranger, as the members of this forum are referencing a completely different Chol Jin Kim message that discusses winning the lottery and finding the cure for cancer. It makes no sense, I know, and the only connection I could get between these two different kinds of messages is that in the second one that we find on the Bitcoin site, which connects to the Orange Socks website from earlier that deals with childhood diseases. In addition to that, repeatedly on the Bitcoin forum, the users keep saying the following: "Don't look up, Chol Jin Kim win the New Zealand," which of course I did look up and came to see that there were now dozens of these messages across the web. In fact, just looking up Chol Jin Kim, you can find posts all the way back from the early 2000s, like this one about a different little boy from 2008, and in the comments, there it is again, a message from this author talking about wanting to be this little boy. And whoever wrote this replied 17 years later to this post. Like, what the heck, dude? And that's about exactly what you'll find across all sorts of threads. This random blurb from what we are meant to believe is a fat Asian man who wants to become a little boy. What's strangest to me though about all this are two things. Obviously the post itself is weird, but it's truly weird because it's been posted hundreds of times to the internet, and it's often just left in the comments of the most random things. And honestly, hundreds is probably an underestimate because you can find this saying so far back into the most obscure places that you wouldn't typically find, like this Bitcoin thread. And the second weird thing to me is that whoever was writing this went from just random posts online to now leaving random letters in real life. All in all, I don't know what to make of this, so let me know if you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, or if something else truly weird may be going on. 8 months ago, user SlowMemory29 made a post to r/creepy discussing a strange find him and his friend made outside one fateful afternoon. My friend found this weird balloon with crazy writing on it. He reported it to Crime Check and they said not to worry about it. If it were a prank, why would someone joke about something like this? And the balloon, upon closer inspection, has the following statement written on it. Manhole under the gravel in the backyard and under the stove or fridge. 14 kids kidnapped, Lions Glen Apartments, number 23 through 25 and 26. Well, I dare say that's a balloon that would scare Pennywise. Now, considering it was written on a balloon in kind of poor handwriting, it was pretty hard to tell what exactly was written on it and to come to this consensus. So there was an internet war that broke out between the neckbeards and the basement dwellers, which resulted in OP getting a surprising amount of hate for this post, like he had taken the children himself. Even though I would think that if you were to find a balloon that claims there are trapped children somewhere, it's probably worth doing a little bit of digging. And thankfully we weren't the only ones who thought so. After trying several variations of the writing and the possible addresses, there was a ding on the radar. A user uncovered a series of apartments that matched the address given on the balloon and that were across the street from several homes. This was a pretty urban area, so most of the homes and apartments in that area are very similar, except for what else a few of these users found. Across the street from this particular apartment building, there was a home with the backyard under some sort of development, and one can see what appears to be a highly similar version of what the balloon describes. And it's also important to note that in this area where the address is given for, there is no other gravel except for this one spot. Even stranger, there is an apartment building across the street from the construction site that does seem a little sus. What some sleuths found online was that matching up the angle of the apartment building, there were only a handful of units that could see into the gravel backyard. And when comparing that with some online listings, the numbers of the apartments in question were 23, 25, and 26, among a few others. An odd coincidence perhaps, but not altogether impossible that something more is going on here. That, however, is about as much credence as this story possesses, and since I like to disprove things rather than just assume they're false, I'll give the opposition a fair swing here. The reason I find this hard to believe is that the author of this letter claims that a portion of the 14 children are being hidden under a stove or a fridge in an apartment building, and I don't know if you've ever seen an apartment building, but it's not like they have a whole lot of room left in between units, especially not enough room to hide a bunch of children, so it's pretty much impossible for me to believe that part of this claim. Also, one's gotta wonder how long the balloon had been in the air, how far it had flown, and the fact that it had just ended up right in OP's front yard is a little convenient considering it could have ended up anywhere. So in my mind, it's not impossible this is real, but it's also a bit hard to get behind. Then again though, the description of the backyard did match up. All in all, a weird mystery with some potentially dark undertones, and as such, I don't know exactly what to think, but I would like to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Unique prayer rug for $333,000. Please read the description in order to discover. Now what are we trying to discover? Because that is a mighty overpriced rug. But don't worry, what you discover is that you're getting a lot more than that for your money. What the seller is really offering here is this dapper young lad. Yeah, I don't like that. And I'm also not a fan of the fact that the rug is the only part that's $333, and it's the shipping that costs the extra $333,000. That just doesn't seem right. All jokes aside though, this is super strange, and far too Diddy-esque for me. I've listed a few things on eBay, not children, and it's not like you can accidentally upload a photo of your child wearing a matching shirt to your rug. You have to confirm your listing several times and review it another couple of times before it actually goes live. Additionally, the item is shipping from Uzbekistan, so I'm even more sus. But what pushes me over the edge here is that in the frequently bought together section above this listing, there's another child for sale. And it's pretty clearly not the same child as the first post. His face is completely different and he's wearing a totally different outfit. However, he does have the same price. More disturbingly to me though, his picture was taken on the same background, which makes it harder for me to believe that this was just an accident because the seller did it twice with two separate kids wearing matching outfits to the rugs they're selling and took the photos in the same place. I mean, come on, you know what you're doing here. The real kicker for me though is that this was listed 2 years before the Wayfair trafficking scandal, so it's not as though this was some sort of attempt to gain traction by piggybacking on that, or whatever other weird reasons they could have had. Moreover, the descriptions for this item are so weird. Seller notes, When you have everything but you still feel emptiness, when your hands can reach the sky but you have no will to step ahead and you can't see meaning in anything around, when you want to change all but you don't know how to start, get this unique prayer rug with story and start to feel spiritual peace. Because if God wills, this prayer rug will be your shield against hell, as a single drop of tears shed for the sake of God can put out the fire of hell. May Almighty reward you with paradise if you buy this unique asset for the sake of Him. Quran was recited sitting on this rug. May Allah reward you for your generosity. What the heck, bro? And trust me, we're not done with the strangeness there. Let's take another step down and see what it says below that. I can't offer you the key of paradise, but I can offer you a unique prayer rug which will lead you to paradise. Unique prayer rug and handkerchief filled with tears for the sake of God during congregation, prayer, and dua khatam al-Quran on Laylat al-Qadir. Oh man, I definitely butchered that one. Only God knows the real value of this prayer rug, and this can be appreciated only by those who love Him. I believe there are still people who are not negligent for the sake of Almighty. May God reward those who are generous for the sake of Him. Starting price USD 333,000. Buy it now, depends on your generosity. Cryptocurrency is acceptable. Contact me. Email attached. Now that is just weird. I don't know who would write that, especially if you were trying to sell this honestly. It's convoluted, it's creepy, and it's really just not up my alley, guys. I mean, that being said though, if anything in the past 10 years has been taught to us, is that this sort of stuff is happening more than we think. And who knows, maybe what they're doing is directly telling us that they are selling this child. I don't know, but it is sure convenient that they do accept crypto for payment. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down below. This last one comes to us from my fiance Chase, and I gotta say, it's pretty crazy. And based on my analytics, the majority of you guys and gals who are watching right now were alive when this came online over a decade ago, so I want you to take yourselves back to 2012, put yourself in your chair looking at Reddit. It's a typical day when you stumble across the following post. What is an extremely dark or creepy true story most people don't know about? Now, it being the internet and specifically Reddit, you don't expect much. Maybe you think about the story of your mom who made a dish that was a combination of fish, bacon, and alligator toenails. But one user had a much different story. He responded with the following post. Nobody knows about this story, but I will tell you, Reddit, this is about my uncle. I think it was the late 1970s or 80s, I can't remember which, but my uncle is old, he's like 50 now. Anyway, he took a trip to the Grand Canyon with his friends. They were driving along the Grand Canyon and stopped near this area with hedges, brush on the side of the canyon and decided to take one of your standard funny Grand Canyon pictures. They had a really funny idea, this part's redacted. My uncle was to stand on the side of the Grand Canyon with a fishing rod and pretend to fish off the side of the canyon. So they ended up taking the picture and shortly after packed up and drove off. So they took the role to be developed, and when they saw the picture, they noticed something very strange. In the picture, not far behind my uncle, was a man dressed in all black with pale white skin, standing there in the brush, just staring at the camera with a knowing smirk on his face. He said he and his two friends were in that spot for about 15 minutes. My uncle and his friends claimed that they did not know the man, that they were the only ones in that spot, and that the Grand Canyon was vacant of tourists that time of year. They still know nothing about the man, and the picture still exists. I will post it if there's enough demand. I have to find it first. I think it's on his Facebook or something. Now that is quite the claim, and 13 years later, I still get the chills. Honestly, thinking about the Grand Canyon and standing on the edge is enough to make the stomach turn. It's so easy to organically slip and fall, and it's not hard for me to imagine some troglodyte drinking a White Claw trying to take a photo with one foot hanging off the edge. So the idea of having someone unknown watching you would be haunting. And it seems that to this day, it remains so for OP's uncle because a short while later, he updated us with a bit more information and a rather disturbing photo. Edit, here it is. I know you're thinking it was probably extremely difficult for the photographer to not notice the man, but my uncle and the photographer swear by the story. He's pulled my leg in the past, but I am not a child anymore, and he still tells the same story. Many members of my family have seen the picture and say they do not know the man either and know the majority of my uncle's friends, especially the two on the trip. Now, I won't tantalize you any longer. Here is the photo in question. And for those of you annoyed by the arrow, it took a little bit of searching, but I did find one without that arrow, and that's also not a scan, and that's the original. And it's really creepy. By all appearances, it seems like a demon is sticking his head out from behind the trees, feet from a man on the edge of the Grand Canyon, in winter, while there's ice. While this figure simultaneously stares down the camera with kind of a smile. But there's no way this is real, right? Well, there's a lot of theories on that, but they break down into a few key sides. It's staged, it's edited, or on the other hand, it's a supernatural entity really there caught on camera by accident. Or it's an evil individual who was about to push OP's uncle into the canyon, but realized he was being watched and was on camera. As for the first two, if this was faked, it wasn't digitally edited. Scans have proven that several people have done, and more so, there are no signs of the photo being manipulated whatsoever. Meaning if this was faked, it had to have been done so in the moment over 50 years ago. Which, let's be honest, is a lot of work. You're on a road trip like OP discusses and decide to purchase a giant overcoat and makeup, stop at the Grand Canyon while you're on a time crunch because you're on a trip, set up the whole outfit, put the whole outfit on, walk all the way to the canyon's edge, stand on it posing, while your friend runs what seems to be a pretty fair distance to a different part of the canyon to get a shot of you, while your third friend stands behind your first friend pretending to be a demon, hiding in the trees, in winter, while it's slippery. Also, you can make a long-lived internet hoax 20 years before you've heard the word internet, but not just for any part of the internet, but for a Reddit thread reply, not even an actual post, Reddit itself being something that you wouldn't know existed for another 30 years after you took the photo, generally speaking. I don't know, man, that seems like a lot of ifs and what ifs to me. And bearing that in mind, even if OP's uncle did stage this as some sort of boomer meme in the 70s, he would have to carry this picture around for him everywhere to get any use of it. It just doesn't make any sense. And he wouldn't get anything from lying to his nephew 30 plus years after the incident either. So who then do I think is the man actually in the background? And yes, man, demons are real, but I don't think this is one of them, at least not literally. What I think is the most compelling case is the one I saw originally brought up by an article discussing this photograph. Allegedly, there are no serial killers who have ever used the Grand Canyon as their main method of dispatching their victims, but I sort of find that hard to believe. I would wager some have used it, but none have been caught, and there's one case in particular that connects back to this image, and that is the story of Robert Spangler. Animal is probably more of a fair term for this fellow than man, as he took the lives of his wife and 2 children in 1978, and by some failure of the justice system, not only didn't suffer a single consequence for these actions, was actually let off scot-free, because he had staged the crime scene to make it look like the wife had done it. Apparently didn't do a very good job, but they fell for it anyway. In addition to that, failed multiple lie detector tests and broke down an interrogation. But I digress. We talk about him because he then went on to live for another 15 years, a crime in and of itself, married another woman, and on April 11th, 1993, he then took his new wife, Donna Sundling, on a little trip to the Grand Canyon where she would plummet into the depths, making the total 4 victims of this dude. But no, it does not cease there. He had a second wife named Sharon, who he divorced before the Grand Canyon wife. And then, using the grief of losing that wife to the canyon, he was able to ingratiate himself with this second wife and got back into Sharon's good graces until she died of a drug overdose on April 2nd, 1994. In proof the system is broken, he got an insurance payout from her death and was never charged for it. All of this may sound like a tangent, but for one, it's at least proof that the use of the Grand Canyon for convenient killings does happen. And 2, most importantly for this case, I think that Robert looks a lot like the guy in the photo. And mind you, in this photo, he's about 20 years younger than the one I'm showing you on screen now, but I think we can easily admit the mouth has that same weird curl when he smiles, and the nose is practically identical. And from what we can tell of the general face structure that isn't covered by the cloak, it's very similar to that of Robert's. And on top of that, the white areas to me on this guy's face don't look like natural skin color, but makeup. And according to OP, this photo was taken in the late 1970s, which is the same general time when Robert took the lives of his family. Further, I find it odd that Robert just got the idea on a whim to push his wife into the canyon. And to really top this one off, this was like a cherry. It didn't even take much looking. Even stranger is that I found an article from 1993, the same year that Robert's wife disappeared, air quotes, into the canyon. It turns out that 6 others met their end that same way in the Grand Canyon, 4 of which happened in the same 3-day period. And this article was published by the AP as an attempt to quell suspicions that these deaths weren't accidental, meaning that people were thinking there might be a murderer in the Grand Canyon. And if you can guess, this can't even be made up. If you had to guess, who do you think the AP interviewed for this article about allegedly accidental deaths in the Grand Canyon? You guessed it, Robert Spangler, the guy who just pushed his wife over the edge. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of odd coincidences here, and perhaps Robert is guilty of a lot more than we're aware of. After all, even when dying of both brain and lung cancer, he would only admit to the killings that he knew he couldn't be sued for, that being his first family and his wife Donna that he pushed into the canyon. Utterly despicable. And for reference, I don't know if you've ever been hiking, but this is a photo taken just a short while before Donna met her end. And they are indicative of just about every boomer couple you pass while walking along a trail. And it really does make you think. So taking it all the way back to OP's original post, clearly someone is in that photo, we know it wasn't edited, and I don't think a hoax is the most likely solution. So if we're assuming it's real, then who is it? With all these things that line up, certainly Spangler is at the very least a good guess. But that's just my opinion. Let me know yours down below. Oh! Alrighty, you guys. Thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. Sincerely, it means the world to me. Make sure to comment the Grand Canyon. It'll make sense to us, but nobody else. And with that being said, I also want to say, you guys, thank you for all of the growth that you've been giving the channel. You've been blowing it up. We're almost at 17,000 subscribers, which is insane, and that's all because of you guys, so sincerely thank you. It's just been awesome to get to know you guys, and lately there's been a lot of support flooding in. I want to specifically shout out Paul for the big financial support on Patreon. It's been huge. I've never had something like that before, so thank you. And whether or not you support me financially or by subscribing or by watching the whole video, I just want you to know thank you sincerely. It means the world to me, and I'm really, really grateful. So without further ado, I won't take any more of your time. However, I do look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next one.